All right, welcome back to the studio. I'm Chris. I'm going to show you a bunch of things today that are things that I noticed that a lot of beginner students or even some intermediate students encounter. I see a lot of people that slam their clay down onto their bat. If you slam it down off center, you really have to work much harder to get your clay on center. And as a teacher, I really want to set you up for success, and I want to kind of guide you in the right direction. All those things sort of compile together into a successful time. I wedge my clay, and when I wedge my clay, I wedge it in ram's head method typically, which means that my particles are oriented in this direction as I'm wedging. And I have an unpopular opinion in that I put my clay on the wheel with my particle alignment going perpendicular to the wheel instead of flipping it and having my particle alignment spin with the wheel. I really believe it helps get better compression in my clay. I don't have anything to like really back that up. I just believe that it leads to less S-cracking. We'll battle that out in the comments, and I encourage you to comment below if you feel strongly the other way. Instead of slamming my clay down, I'm going to place it in what I perceive as the center of the wheel, and I'm just going to compress with my hand in a very uniform motion, and just creating a mound right in the middle of the wheel so that when I start my wheel spinning, my clay is already basically centered before I even start. Clay has a ton of variables. I think we're always trying to minimize those variables so that we can be successful in what we're doing. And this is, again, a way to minimize your variables. And I'm going to start my wheel spinning, and you'll see that this is not that far off from center before I even start the process. And I want to talk a little bit about high points and controlling high points. That might not be a term that you've heard before, but I think once you see it, if you've done any throwing on the wheel, you will definitely recognize that this is something that you might struggle with. So I'm throwing a little bit of water on the top of my clay, and I always apply downward pressure first. If you have trouble centering, definitely refer back to my centering video. I will link it. So I push my clay down, and I have the center point of my mass of clay is the high point. Most hands have a curvature to the bottom of them. If we apply pressure down and we kind of unintentionally impart that curvature into our clay, now my center point is the lowest point and my outer points are the high point. As I push my clay up, so I'm pushing with my left hand forward, you'll notice that I get this valley in the middle of my clay. And that valley is problematic for a bunch of different reasons. One, if I kind of get slurry and stuff in there and I continue to go up and down, I may trap that slurry in and then find an irregular pocket when I go to open my clay. Clay travels to the closest high point. So as I apply pressure and bring this up, my high point is this outer edge. If I angle my right hand down and I come back down and my center point becomes the high point, as I push my clay in, my center point will stay the high point. So if you ever end up with that valley in your clay, just remember that we want to make the center point the high point, and our clay will travel to that high point. This trickles into when we make pots also. When I talk to students about making a cylinder, if our walls are up and down like this and our high point is at the outer portion of our rim and I'm pulling up, our pot is likely to go out. That high point, if we made the inside the high point and angled our wall inward, our clay would travel up and in rather than going out. So now we are going to look at uneven wall height. I know that this happens to everybody. The best practice is to become more consistent and not have it happen on your pots. But let's just be real. We live in the real world, and this is an occasional occurrence, and it's really valuable to know how to sort of remedy that. So I'm going to intentionally throw something that has a high point on the rim, and then I'm going to show you my preferred method to sort of fix that. Okay, so we have an irregular rim. I was taught that you use a pin tool to do this, and you can kind of cut through with the pin tool, but the pin tool creates a lot of friction, and I find that that friction tends to create twists. I tend to use a wire to cut this instead. And the way that I do it is I put my fingers in the loops. This is a wire that I made, but you can use, whatever wires available. And I wrap it around my fingers much like you would wrap dental floss around your fingers. And I put one of my fingers on the inside, one of my fingers on the outside, and I'm bringing this down just below the lowest point of the rim. Once it's made a full rotation, I should be able to just pull that off. Again, I'm using this, I'm going down, I'm allowing it to make at least a full rotation while holding it at its desired height, and then as you get good at it, you'll be able to take it off on the wire. I'm gonna kind of intentionally fudge this, and I'm gonna go down and I'm kind of coming off and I get all this stuff. Don't panic, and you release that wire. You can just come in with your fingers and just gently lift this piece off. Sometimes if your clay's a little wetter, it could be a little more difficult. Then I will just take my sponge and I just kiss that rim and sort of even that rim out. All right, I hope this helped. If you need anything else, please comment below. I'm happy to help with any tips or tricks or things that you need. I'll catch you later.